Hi, I'm Leslie Maddox, the Geek Mama, and today I'm doing a video for the Virtual Homeschool Co-op about how I use reading lists in my homeschool. Now let me give you a little bit of background first before I jump into the reading list. I have 3 kids, 3 boys. My oldest is 7. He's in 2nd grade and doing 2nd grade work. My second son he just turned 5, so he's doing K4 work, and my youngest is 2 years old. My 2 oldest are the ones, obviously, that are doing any kind of reading. My oldest is, he's doing the 2nd grade reading Hooked on Phonics program. We've been doing that since he was in public school and kindergarten, and that's worked pretty well for us. So we use that program and the readers that come along with them, and he really likes them and always looks forward to them. I would say he's a little bit advanced of a reader at this point because I did have him up until the end of last school year. I had him just basically doing Hooked on Phonics, but I started introducing some chapter books to him just to maybe get him to learn sight words a little better in context and just to get him a little more excited about reading. And that ended up working out really well. By the time we started 2nd grade, he knew almost all of the sight words on the entire adult sight word list, from kindergarten through 3rd grade. And his reading fluency has really improved. So it's worked out really well. For that reason, I put together a reading list for him for this year. This is our 2nd year homeschooling, and so for his 2nd grade year, based on things I found on Pinterest and different curriculum companies. I looked at the books that they require of their students for 2nd grade, and just generally Googled and looked around online. And I'm using Scholastic's, a portion of Scholastic's website, the Book Wizard portion. They have an area where you can keep track of book lists, and they give you information about a lot of the books, about what interest level they are, what's the grade level equivalent, what's the guided reading level for it. So they give you a lot of information about most of the books that I put in, and so I've been using that to keep track of books that I may have my 2nd grader read, and also to keep track of that for the future. If I see that book's not going to work out for 2nd grade, maybe it's too advanced, then I delete it or move it to another reading list. That way, when my other boys come up and are on a 2nd grade reading level, I already have some ideas, things that have worked out for us, and books that we probably already own, ready to go. For my second son, he's doing K4 work, but he's already almost done with the kindergarten portion of the Hooked on Phonics program. So by the time he starts kindergarten, he'll be well into 1st grade reading. I do things a little bit different for him because he is younger and he doesn't have the stamina or the maturity that his older brother does to do a lot of reading. My older son will read for about 15 or 20 minutes a day. Cruz, he may not be able to do that. Sometimes he's able to do a lot of reading. One day he got so excited and was having so much fun reading, and this was just out of the phonics book. It wasn't even just books. It was just the phonics workbook. He just, something lit a fire under him, and he did about 2 months worth of reading in that one day. I had to finally stop him and say, we've done enough. And then there's other days he can't even finish one line. He's just mentally not there, and that's okay. I'm not pushing him at all. I'll often have him repeat pages in the workbook for a few days until I feel like he's really got it before we move on. We're not in any kind of rush. The only reason I actually started him when he was 3 years old, because he was sounding words out with his brother when he was doing kindergarten work, and he was really interested. He really loves to read, and he loves to be read to. He loves books. So I started him and had to stop and start a couple of times before I realized that he needed glasses. And then once he got glasses, then the reading took off even more. And so we're not in any kind of hurry with him. I don't expect to do any kind of reading list for him anytime soon. I might add in some Bob books next year, depending on his stamina and his willingness. Maybe I'll just do it once a week but in general, I'm pretty happy with just sticking with his phonics program. So for my older son, the reason I have a reading list for him is to give him more reading practice. And I also like that idea of learning good character through reading. Character is a big deal to me as far as his reading material. And then also the books early on in the reading list I'm having him read early on in the year are most of them pretty easy for him. They were either upper first grade or early second grade level, and he was really beyond that. But I think that's okay. He enjoyed them. It increased his confidence. And I did read somewhere recently online from someone who knows more than I do that kids really should be reading about 85% of the words they should read. I think that was the number. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure, but somewhere in that area, about 85% of the words they read should be words that they know. So I've been okay with that. The books will get much harder as the year moves along and as he learns more in his phonics program. So I think it's okay that early on the reading is a little bit easy for him. As far as reading incentives go, I don't use any reading incentives right now. I would like just the pleasure of reading to be incentive enough for him, but also I just expect them to do certain work during the day, him especially. And if he gets all that work done, whatever work I expect of him that day, and I don't have any discipline issues, then they have the incentive to have some iPad time and maybe play on the Xbox. So the incentive to get his reading done is wrapped up in just the rest of his schoolwork. Now for reading comprehension, I do obviously, want my older son especially to understand what he's reading. Otherwise, what's the point? So for his Hooked on Phonics readers, the Hooked on Phonics workbooks have reading comprehension questions in them for each reader. And so I ask him those questions. For his other reading, just through conversation or talking about it or kind of recap what we read before, I ask my son questions just to see if he understands what's going on, especially if I feel like it may seem a little tricky to him. And he surprised me by how well he understands. If I feel he's not paying attention, if he's just kind of reading, not really paying attention, or if he's sounding a lot of words out, I may have him read something over again or act it out, which really works well for him because he's a physical kid. He needs a lot of sensory input. So he loves to get up and act something out. And now even when I don't ask him to act something out, if I ask him a question about it, he'll get up and do that. So that works well for him. If he were into drawing, I'd have him maybe draw a picture about the story, but he hates art. He hates art. He told me the other day he wished art wasn't invented. So I don't do that. I just leave it at a verbal, why did he do that? What do you think is going to happen next? That type of question. What do you think about that? What would you do? I ask him those types of questions occasionally. I wish that would translate into long, deep conversations, but that has not happened yet. Usually by the time my son finishes that reading, he's ready to move on. So I'll just ask him some quick questions and let him go. Hopefully when he gets older, he'll want to enter into those deep conversations. That may not happen because reading's just not his thing. It's just not his thing, and that's okay. I don't expect him to make it a hobby. I'm just trying to give him good language arts skills so that he can fulfill whatever goals he has in the future, and so that he can communicate well and understand other people when they're communicating with him. Now that I've given you some background about my homeschool and explained why we have a reading list for my second grader and how I put it together, I want to hop over to the Scholastic website and show you my book list, what that website has to offer and how I use it. So here's Scholastic's website. I'm in the Book Wizard portion and looking at my book list. You need to create a username, create an account on the Scholastic website, and you'll have access to this. If you scroll down, when you first go into your book list, you get an option of all your book lists. I'm just looking at my second grade reading list. I also have lists for third grade and for read alouds, but the list I use most right now is for second grade reading since my oldest is in second grade. There's an opportunity for you to put notes in your book list. I'm looking at it as an educator. And when the list first comes up, you can choose how you want to, what you care about as far as reading level. Guided reading, Lexile, grade level equivalent. I like guided reading. So that's how I have it sorted. And then right here, I have it sorted from easy to hard. When the list first comes up, it's sorted by title, A to Z, but I change it to being sorted usually from easy to hard. Now, I sometimes have problems in doing this and having it sort. It seems like Scholastic doesn't always want to serve up the web page. I don't know what the problem is. I've had to do some workarounds. I've tried different browsers, and there's just some fundamental issue there. So it can be frustrating. This isn't a perfect solution, but when it works great. So how I use this is as I come across possibilities for a reading list, for a book to add to my son's reading list, I just enter it in here. And let me just show you one of the books. This book, the Scholastic website has information about it. So it shows me what interest level. For this one, the interest level is from grades K through second grade. It shows me it shows me the reading level in different ways. The two that I use are grade level equivalent and guided reading. But I mostly use guided reading. And I use these, if I come across a book that I might add to a reading list, I'll look in here and I'll see if it's at an interest level appropriate for my little students. And I check out the reading level. So for example, if it's at a interest level of K through 2 or second grade or thereabouts, but the reading level is for maybe 4th or 5th grade, then I know that that's more of a read aloud. It's not something for my son to read. Or if it's an interest level of maybe middle school age kids, and then a reading level of lower, like 4th or 5th grade, again, that's not even appropriate. My son just isn't going to be interested or be able to keep up with that book in any way, in understanding, comprehension, or in reading. So I either delete that book from my list, or I move it to another list, a read aloud list, or for a different grade, to just keep for the future in case I want to use it. Let me see if I can go back. All right. Let's see. What I usually do is I sort by easy to hard with guided reading level, and then I just pick out, like, let's say the H's. See, okay, which one of these H's are we going to read? I've got 2 in here. So I had him read A Kiss for Little Bear. He really loved all the Little Bear books. My 5-year-old actually enjoyed sitting next to him and listening to Michael read the stories because they just thought they were cute and funny. And then I have this book, A Tree is Nice. We actually haven't even read that yet because I realized that would mesh well in our science program later on in the year. So even though it's a pretty easy book, I'm saving it for later when we're kind of discussing those things in science. So we read the Little Bear books, Mouse Tales. That was okay. It wasn't that interesting to him. Harry the Dirty Dog was pretty good. So see, we're just kind of moving along. These earlier books were pretty easy for him, but that's okay. As I mentioned earlier, it's okay to read something that he can read really well to drive up his confidence and just get more practice. If we read a book that wasn't that interesting, I used to have Nate the Great on this list. I see that book on lots of lists, and you know what? He just didn't really get it. Has a lot of sarcastic humor in it, which I think isn't a lot of kids his age don't really get, and so I deleted it from the list. I thought, that's not as interesting to him as some of these other books are. So that's how I use this list. This is kind of a living list. It's not set in stone. I add to it and I delete from it if I need to. It's a tool for me to use. It's not a doctrine. It's not a dogma I'm sticking to. So we're just moving through this list. we've read Daniel Stuck, but we haven't read The Big Balloon Race yet. We've moved over actually to the Frog and Toad books, and he's been reading those and really likes them. So I generally move here according to this guided reading level. We got to K, so I picked through to see, okay, which K book are we going to read next? You see a lot of these earlier ones have been just kind of sweet stories about Little Bear and Frog and Toad and the Owl at Home. And this book, Daniel Stuck, that was felt that was much deeper, kind of a deep story for a kid his age, but again, some really good values and character values taught in, character traits taught in there. So that was the kind of book I wanted to keep. As we move further on in the year, I have a lot of American history type books in here. I didn't do a fantastic job with history last year. I did a lot of kind of read alouds with the If You Lived in Whatever Times books. But I thought, well, maybe we can redeem some of that this year, even though we're doing Story of the World in Ancient Times. Maybe we can redeem some of the American history stuff through his reading list. So as long as it's appropriate for his age and as long as he finds them interesting. And I tried to look for books that featured little boys or that I thought he might be interested in. Like, look at this, Buffalo Bill and the Pony Express. We're not really outdoorsy people, but who knows? Maybe he'll like that. So the Frog and Toad book. Here's a science book that I moved to mesh with his science program when we discuss tools that scientists use. And then we move on to the next page. That's Amelia Bedelia, what we'll try out, and then more of this history that we're going to address. This is actually part of a series. There's a book before that features some little boys moving here the long way to a new land, and then we'll read The Long Way Westward. I'm interested to see how he likes those. Here's another book that is going to mesh well with our history curriculum when we look at volcanoes, more history type things. So that's how I'm handling that. I just put books in here that I think he might be interested in. I make sure that they're using this tool, that they will work well for his interest level and his reading level. And then I kind of go through from easy to hard and we read them. I think 31 books on here right now. I don't know that we'll read them all. We may read them all and I'll need to add some more. That's okay. One thing I do is I go to half price books and see what readers they have there. So like this book back here, the Josephina story quote, I think that's how I found that one. I didn't see that on any reading list, but I saw it at half price books and it is featuring a little girl, but I thought, well, we'll see. This might be a good one to read. So I'm not even sure yet that we're going to read it, but I kept it on the list just to remind me that it's here and it's available, and so that I don't forget about it. There's also, and if you look at the top here, it tells you that they're now mobile. The Book Wizard is now mobile, so that's nice. There's an app that goes along with this, so you can look at your reading list. I don't think I found a way to sort with that app, but you can at least look at your reading list as you're out shopping, and especially if you're somewhere like Half Price Books. If you're just on Amazon, you don't really need all that. But and I have found used books on Amazon as well, so that's a good place to get used books. But like if you're somewhere at a used bookstore or out shopping, and you think, oh, maybe I can pick up a few books, you can look at your list to see what you need. As long as we're discussing helpful web tools for keeping track of your reading list, thought I'd share this one. I'm using, I don't even know how to pronounce this. It's Libib or Libib. It's to keep track of your home library. I really like the app that goes along with this because you can, especially if it's a newer book, you can scan the barcode and easily put the information into your account. And it usually gets it right if it's a newer book, or you can enter in the information manually. And then you have at your fingertips as long as you put all your books in there, just all the books you have. I found this helpful because I had a lot of, I would forget what books I'd bought, and also I had books that I didn't even know I had. My mother-in-law was an elementary uh, school teacher. She's a retired teacher, and when we started homeschooling, she gifted us with a lot of teaching materials and a lot of books. And there were books that she'd given me that I'd forgotten about because I hadn't used them yet, like the book "A Tree Is Nice." I ordered that off Amazon, and then when I realized, I really need to get a handle on what books I have and started inputting things in here, I came across that book that she'd actually given it to me. So I'm really trying to stay on top of that, of whenever I get a new book, to enter it in here so that I can look in. And also, like if I'm, let's say at a used bookstore, or I'm just online shopping and come across a book that might be a good addition to our library, I can look through here and see, I can do a search and see, do I have that book already? Because I don't want to buy it again. That would drive me crazy. So this is a nice tool to have. I've tried a couple of different tools for keeping track of your home library. This is my favorite so far. I don't know if it's the best one. If you have a suggestion for a different tool like this, please let me know. I would love to hear about it and to maybe try it out. But this is the one I use right now and what I've found to be helpful. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe if you haven't already. And I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.